talked a lot about left field during Baseball Nuggets, and I feel like for a lot of folks, that's probably going to be. Is it just going to be a platoon? Is somebody going to step up? Are they even going to have that opportunity? Does it still boil down to left field for y'all, or is there a different question mark that you're looking at going to Arizona?
To me, my major one, and it won't be solved in spring training, but how good can Josh Jung be? Because we're relying on him becoming a cornerstone of the Texas Rangers. The way that I remember doing shows, pre and post game shows in 2017, the new pillars of the Texas Rangers, right? We'd build them up for a whole year in 2017. The franchise is going to regain dominance, and 2010 and 2011 are going to happen again, and they're going to happen because of Nomar Mazara, Joey Gallo, and Rougned Odor. This is where we're building the franchise around, and in 2000 whatever, it is going to be awesome. I don't know if you guys can remember that or not, but I mean, that's what we were selling in 2017. They're the pillars. They're the things you're building your foundation on, Mazara, Gallo, and Odor. And honestly, none of them worked out. Now, obviously, Gallo got you some decent return value in a trade, but none of them worked out as being franchise-changing players. Mazara is pretty much a minor leaguer now. You know, Rugi's still putting up the same numbers that he's always put up, and Gallo's gotten worse. Josh Jung needs to be a franchise-changing player. Now, I'm not saying Hall of Famer. I'm not saying like, oh, he's a 5 or 8-time All-Star. But he needs to be a guy that, and I'm not saying this year, but this season, we need to see the signs of a great player in the making. Because if he at the end of the year, or there's a chance, I mean, to be honest, there's a chance in mid-May, you're like, hey, we just have to send him down to get more seasoning. Or he gets hurt again.
Okay, and that was going to be my question. What if you see the signs of that for, let's say, 3 months? You're like, holy crap. And then it gets hurt again.
Sell.
Does that kill all momentum?
For me, it's sell. Because that
means
means
have to wait till the off season probably in that to see if a team would. He would hurt his trade value by getting hurt again.
Yeah,
too.
And that's where it's like, could I involve him in something? But Kevin, a great man once said, "Hurt players get hurt," and like that would be me looking at him going, dude, all these things just keep happening like this. Dang, man, you're injury prone.
Yeah,
according to Kevin.
I mean,
but
so far he has been injury prone.
But and that's where I would be like, I can't, even with all this, I can't trust that you're ever going to develop beyond this. Even though we see these little glimpses, we can't trust that. So I would try to maximize value somehow by the end of the season and move on if I had some significant injury this year. But Mike's right, they would go away. But I'm very hopeful that he is a part of the block of foundation that they're building on, because their foundation right now is the veterans they bought. Like they don't have a foundation of youth that is the future for this right now.
I'm going to go to cut number 3 right here. This is Jacob deGrom just talking about his left side tightness, because I think that is what's going to remain my biggest question throughout spring training.
Yeah, I mean, obviously what I've been through the past couple of years, I've dealt with some things, and this is very minor. Left side was a little tight. Mentioned that to them. Actually, I was still throwing at home. And then when I got here, they just said, hey, let's take a couple of days, knock this all the way out, and then resume. I was able to build a good bulk of throwing at home. I think I got off the mound close to 6 times before I came here, which normally leading into a spring, I would only have been off the mound 2 or 3 times. So I built up a good bulk, and, talking to CY about that and the training staff was, hey, let's make sure this left side goes away. And then, where I was at with my arm, we were comfortable taking a few days.
Everything felt fine during all your bullpens at home?
Yes.
And when was your last bullpen?
It was like a week ago, I believe. A week, because I threw at FanFest, then I threw when I got back, and then I threw again off the mound, and then was playing catch, and honestly, I felt it a little bit in light catch, but once I stretched out, I felt great.
Okay.
So I continued throwing, and then, like I said, once I said, hey, it's kind of hanging around, then they were like, let's take a couple days and knock this out.
All right, and I appreciate all of that, but you can understand the level of concern is I just want to see what they do with him in spring training. I have no doubt, he's a good pitcher. I just want to see how they handle his work in spring training.
I mean, let's be honest. They gave that contract, and, we had Chris Jung on, the general manager.
Yeah.
They gave that contract saying he's starting 30 games every year.
Yep.
They did not give that contract going, we'll live with 20 to 22 starts.
You're right.
So anything less than 30 starts, I'm not saying is a complete failure. I don't think you can go like it's an A or an F in this situation. But if he makes less than 25 starts, that is an F. If he makes somewhere between 25 and 29 starts, you're like, okay, I can kind of live with that, but you guys signed him to make 30-plus starts a year. You really want a guy making 32 starts. And so if he can make 30 starts, they succeeded in we're giving this much money because we believe he can get back to being approximately 200 innings and approximately 30 starts a year.
When it comes to question mark, Kevin, obviously left field,
Sure.
that's where we are. And that's that we kind of got to that one earlier, but I think, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way because maybe the position just is what it is now, but I don't know what kind of production to expect from the catcher position.
Okay.
And Mike, maybe you could help me figure out what would be a good production, because does Adley Rutschman like change? Is he like an outlier in the world of the catcher? Because what we have is meh.
He might be, well, JT Realmuto is, but to your point, catcher has gone downhill in offensive production over the last at least decade, if not 2 decades. Because remember this, Bryce Harper was a catcher in high school.
Your face.
But they just said, you're not playing catcher. Like, we want the 40 home runs. We want what we believe you can do potentially offensively, and putting you at catcher is going to hinder that. Adley Rutschman does look like a guy who can bring back and he's not defensively this poor, but he looks like he could bring back the Mike Piazza days or Carlton Fisk.
Yeah.
Pudge obviously built up to being a great offensive player. He didn't come into the league at his age as a great offensive player.
Everybody was just excited about his cannon.
Right, his cannon and all that. And then by 92, if I have my years right, or 93, you started seeing, whoa, this Pudge Rodriguez might be able to really produce offensively too. So I do think Adley Rutschman is going to, even with JT Realmuto, I think he's going to crush offensive stats for catchers.
Okay, and that's where I'm like, I don't know what to expect out of Heim. And people
Who had
ask,
a great year last year.
and he did.
His second half wasn't.
But
yeah, up to that point, he was borderline all-star.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people like Mark McLemore, who obviously has played 20 years in the game, and I didn't. He's like, when you see young catchers finally get to be everyday catchers,
You see them where
they die in the second half. And then the next year, they know how to handle being a catcher and their body playing more like 6 months of that position.
So you're kind of in this place where you have Heim and Huff, and I know Mitch Garver's like your DH guy right now, but I would like a little better DH position too. But that's fine. He'll do fine if he's healthy.
And like, what are you getting from Mitch Garver too, right?
Yeah. So that's where I am with. It's just 3 guys that Heim was fun, right? But can Huff grow into whatever they wanted him to become? And will he always be catcher? That's another question that goes along with that.
With Huff, you're saying?
Yeah. So
I wonder how on the team he is.
Ooh.
I don't know if he's on the team.
He kind of bouncing back and forth.
I've sailed on him too. Like, he was the dude 3 or 4 years ago that people were hyped. And now I'm like,
I think he's 50-50. You know how we would come in different player, but you know how we'd always go to spring training and it would be the Willie Calhoun. Is he going to make the team? What is he going to be? And I think that Sam Huff is now entering the Willie Calhoun situation. Now, Willie didn't have the best attitudes if they're like, hey, you're going down the minors.
right.
Which stinks. I always got told every spring training, 100% of the time, you're going down the minors. Never. Well, I guess with the Mets for one series, I got to start the year in the major leagues. And then after one series, like, you're going back down the minors. David Cohn is ready. But I just wonder where he's at and where he fits in on the future of the Rangers. In fact, it just goes to, Broadus was talking about this yesterday, Corey, of the Rangers are starting to accumulate quantity. And I'm not saying quality. I don't know. For quality, you have to actually do good things in the major leagues. But when you start producing a lot of quantity, Ezekiel Duran, Josh Smith, Sam Huff, Justin Foscue, they all can't play in the major leagues. This is when they do the top 30 MLB prospects for the Rangers. Well, at no point will all those guys ever be in the major leagues at one time because you can't. There's only 26 spots. So I just wonder if they take guys like Sam Huff. I think you want guys like Sam Huff to have good springs to almost use them as assets
Leverage,
down the road.
For
Unless
sure.
you think that I don't think they see Sam Huff as an everyday catcher. But I don't know that.
Like, did you see how many times Mike kind of twisted on that conversation? Because the position of catcher is kind of a weird spot. So there are a lot of question marks, I think, at that spot on what kind of production we're getting from the place.
And the other thing, too, is it's such a defensive position. Now, in a weird way, it's not anymore, right? But you still want great pitch framers.
Sure.
At this point, they still are not, electric strike zone. When they get that, it doesn't matter how you catch it. You can bury it in the ground. You can pull it away, pull it in. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a strike if the computer says it's a strike.
Yeah.
And that will open up a whole new world, honestly, at that position. Because now you're like, I don't care. Get on both knees.
Yeah.
Like, stand up. I don't even care if you catch the ball. Like,
lay down and just let it go past
until
you.
it gets to 3 strikes. If there's nobody on first base, you need to catch the ball or block the ball and throw it to first on strike 3. But literally, you don't even have to catch the ball until that point.
From the 3-5, what's our bullpen going to look like? Because
Bunch of dudes.
You think so? Yeah.
Bunch of guys kind of thrown in there. I think you have 2 guys that are considered late inning guys. One that has really good stuff, but still you're kind of waiting on him to do it. A guy that has a pitch that everybody knows is coming because he's afraid to throw his fastball also.
He just gets wild with it, Leclerc.
Yeah, and then the rest of it, I think it kind of feels like they have a bunch of starters that are going to be relievers.
Here's the hope for your bullpen. Your team is so good after 2 months. Let's just say you're 10 games over 500 at the end of May, that we do the same thing that happened in 2010. And you go, all right, we are good. Neftali Felice looks like he's a closer, and that's what I'm hoping from Hernandez. I don't think Leclerc, my honest opinion, I think Leclerc's more of a 7th inning guy than an 8th or 9th inning guy, and right now I think they're leaning to him being the 9th inning guy. But Hernandez takes over the closer's role, is great at it, because I think his stuff is top 10% in bullpen stuff in Major League Baseball. And then you go out and you get a Mike Adams, and you go out and you get other guys. And I can't remember. I know Koji Uehara did not work out in the trade situation when they got him. But I do think you do that. I think Chris Jung is looking at it this way. If after 2 months I'm 10 games over 500, I will start using assets to build up this pen to make the playoffs. But right now, the pen does not look strong. It does look like a major issue for a team that wants to win 90-plus games. Usually if you want to win 90-plus games, your bullpen. Now, bullpens can be crazy. You can look on a piece of paper and go, I like this bullpen. And then you get 2-3 months into the season, you're like, what in the world is wrong with our bullpen? Yeah. And sometimes you have a bad bullpen on paper and you're like, man, we're figuring this out. But I tell you what, man, everybody will tell you this that played Major League Baseball. It's one thing to pitch in the pen when your team is 10 games under 500 or 30 games out of first place. It's another thing when you get past the All-Star break and you're in a race, a pennant race, and you're having to close out games because you know you either keep the lead in your division or you get a game closer. Whether we want to or not, our brain gets in the way a lot because pitching 30 games out or 30 games up are right in the same spot. It's the same 3 innings or same 3 outs, but our brain doesn't work that way. It works in this is more pressure. Not only do I want to do this for me, but I want to do this for my team too. Sure. I want to show that I'm reliable. I want to show that I can pitch on a championship winning team, a division winning team. So I do think the hope is in June, we're saying this team's good. They just need a couple more relievers to make sure it stays this good.